Welcome to the Major Project Podcast, your inside look at the high-stakes world of billion-dollar projects.
Thanks for joining the Major Project Podcast. Today we have Akin Oni to discuss megaproject development and decision-making. Akin is a global megaproject executive with more than 3 decades leading and governing billion-dollar oil, natural gas, LNG, mining, refining, and infrastructure initiatives across 6 continents. He currently serves as CEO and managing partner of FTEX Group and is the author of 3 upcoming books, including the topic today, Megaproject Development and Decision-Making, to be published by Business Expert Express in March 2026. Akin is widely recognized for his expertise in project development, cost engineering, capital stewardship, M&A projects, and business leadership in high-stakes environments. His hallmark strengths, people, planning, and performance have shaped project outcomes in different cultural environments. You can learn more at akinoni.com or check out his popular weekly newsletter on LinkedIn to get a peek at his upcoming books in 2026, The Mighty Warrior Way, Megaproject Development, and Functional Excellence. Through his writing and talks, Akin invites leaders, investors, policymakers, and practitioners alike to embrace a higher standard of excellence, because in megaprojects, as in life, decisions shape destiny. Akin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Orion.
Well, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about your history and really focus in on how you got into major projects.
Wow, a great question. Again, thank you so very much, Orion, for this incredible opportunity to be a part of this. In terms of my history and how I got into major projects, I have reflected on that a few times, and I like to say that my journey actually began long before my first project assignment. It began as a young boy in Western Africa who learned early that hard places can shape strong people. Engineering at one point became my doorway, but curiosity actually became my compass. My early career, as you will probably have learned, took me from classrooms to oil fields, from design offices to construction sites across continents. One opportunity led to another, and suddenly I found myself leading teams on projects worth billions. What kept me rooted was the same thing that carried me from childhood to now. And it is this, the joy of solving meaningful problems with good people. And I take that again, the joy of solving meaningful problems with good people. Back to you.
Thank you for that history, and what a story. So before we get into it, our topic today is mega projects, but maybe we can back up and do a little bit of defining. To you, what constitutes a mega project? And maybe you could give us a few examples of mega projects.
Thank you. In my world, a mega project, simply put, is a human undertaking so large, so huge, that it shapes economies, communities, and sometimes national identity. We put the word mega on anything above $1 billion, but it's really about impact. It could be a major deepwater project, LNG export terminals, refineries, cross-country pipelines, maybe a copper mines, or even metro systems. These are the modern cathedrals, the way I would put it, of industry. They are the modern cathedrals of industry, and they demand leadership, humility, and discipline at a level few other endeavors require. Back to you.
Akin, that's really interesting way to frame it, that it's less about the dollar and more about the impact, which kind of ties into the history that you came about and your passion. So it's a really great frame. Thank you for sharing that. So as we're here today to talk about, maybe we can get into it. What are some key learnings from mega projects? Why do they fail so often? And what advice do you have to minimize that failure rate?
An all-day answer to that question, but I've got a few statistics here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to look at one of the screens where I have the statistics. Research by Bent Flansberg, who is a professor, and others like him suggest that only 1% of large projects are on budget, on time, and delivering full benefits are successful. A recent piece also summarized that we know that 65% of all mega projects fail. Either they go over budget, over time, or both, or they don't even meet their objectives at all. And finally, from McKinsey and Company, from billion-dollar plus mega projects, 98% suffer cost overruns of more than 30%, and 77% are at least 40% late. Just unpack that. Now, across my career, and I've been able to initiate projects, I've helped develop projects, and I've helped execute projects. And you realize that across this spectrum, 3 truths have stayed consistent. I've found out that, number 1, we rush the beginning. What that should mean to you and our listeners today is that poor front-end loading is the root of most disasters that we experience on mega projects. Number 2, we grossly underestimate uncertainty on projects. Most of the time, I find out that optimism bias blinds us. Realism is what saves us. And as I look at the global mega project world, from the mine sites of Southern America, say in Chile or Lima, Peru, to the deep water Gulf of Mexico, now Gulf of America, to Australia, where you see mega oil and gas projects and mega mine development projects, to the frozen corridors of mines in Canada, you realize that when you see a mega project that fails, they fail most of the time because those who are supposed to be looking after that project, they significantly underestimate uncertainty. And number 3, most of the time, we forget that projects are built by people, not spreadsheets. Trust, alignment, and clarity are worth more than any contract. And here's my advice. We need to honor early stages. We need to frame the opportunity honestly. We need to create one fruit, technically, financially, and culturally. Very important. We need to bundle those 3 together. We need to build teams that tell the truth faster than problems grow. And never forget, a mega project is a marathon with sprints inside it. You need to pace yourself. Thank you.
Akin, this is wise words. What I heard on the 3, just to summarize them a little bit, is we rush, we're over-optimistic, and we don't focus enough on creating alignment within teams. And these 3 pillars impact the failure rate substantially. Yeah. Maybe I could push a little bit on one of them I'm interested in, which is the people side, that trust alignment. What's your strategy when you get into these big projects to create that?
That's a very thoughtful question, and thank you for that. When you talk about people, as you mentioned earlier in the intro, I have been globally awarded because of how I have led people in the past in my career. Now, there are 2 parts to it, and this is one of the things that I advise leaders today. When you are asked, they say, Orion, You have just been, congratulations, you have been appointed to be the mega project director of the XYZ underground mine development in Latin America. And we will be flying you and your family down in about 6 weeks. Yes, you do all the planning. When you get there, here's what I tell leaders. Please do yourself a favor, do your career a favor. In fact, do your family a favor. Don't start leading right from day one. Follow what I call the 3 R's of leadership. When you get there, number 1, listen. Number 2, learn. And then number 3, lead. Unfortunately, most leaders who fail today, especially when you lead a new team, they start in the reverse order. They start leading right on day one, and then when they stumble, they start learning. And then after a few stumbles, then they begin to kind of listen. No, it's the wrong way to look at it. So listen, learn, then lead in that order. It's a recipe for success. The second thing I would say to our listeners today about people in my world is, which has worked very well for me. When I got on, I remember sometimes in the, I think 2007, 2008, thereabout, I had the opportunity to lead a 120-person team in Australia. And I realized that there were some struggles. But here is what I would tell leaders without going into a lot of details. With respect to people, make sure you have the right people, not the best people. Have the right people on your project. After you've understood this one, we're going to talk about some of the key pillars. Make sure you have the right people. Make sure you have them in right number. And make sure you have them at the right time. So 3 R's. Right people, right number, right time. Because if you miss one of those, the tendency is that the foundation for developing that project is going to be shaky, and you are likely not going to be successful. Let me leave it at that.
Thank you so much. One thing I really love talking with you, Akin, is that you are a man of 3s so far, and it's really helpful to break things down in 3s. What I heard is we have the 3 pillars of rushing, over-optimism, people alignment.
Yeah.
We broke down people, and you gave us 2 sets of 3s to think about, which is listen, learn, and lead.
Yeah.
And then you need the right people, you need the right number at the right time.
Fantastic.
Those are really great tips. And I think one thing that kind of connects that's interesting is if I'm a leader, I'm taking over a project, I have to listen, learn, and lead. And the other 2 things we didn't unpack, if you're in a rush, you forget to listen.
Yeah.
And if you're over optimistic, you probably are not learning enough about the project. So the other pieces, these other pillars that you have to be aware of, kind of tie into that. So if you can listen, learn, and lead, it almost helps perhaps with all 3 of those major components.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Well, let's talk a little bit about M&A projects. Akin, can you take us through sort of the terms and just sort of framing up what is M&A? What are transactions? What's A&D? Kind of help us understand these terms as we get into mega projects.
Thank you very much. People use the terms interchangeably in a manner that confuse. They use it in a manner that kind of confuse people from time to time. Now, and I know that these terms confuse many people, so I'll keep it simple. There's M&A and there's M&D. They are kind of used together, and they can be used together. M&A is mergers and acquisitions. M&D is mergers, acquisitions, and divestments. I would describe it this way: is the whole life cycle of combining or separating businesses. Because when you do transactions or when you do M&A or M&D, all you are doing is either you buy to combine or you sell to separate. So M&A or M&A is the whole cycle of combining or separating businesses. Now, transactions, which is the one that people use the most to confuse a lot of people, is the financial deal itself. It is the buying, the selling, and the investing. That is transactions. Now, A&D is very common in oil and gas. And A&D simply means acquisitions and divestments. But the deeper story is integration or separation. And that is very important. You can spend all the money that you like. You can look at a business that you really like. But the deeper story around this topic is integration or separation around people, culture, systems. These three, they need to come together in the right manner for the overall transactions to be meaningful. They'll succeed or fail on that front, not on spreadsheets, unfortunately.
Thank you for defining those terms. And if I may, I know you've had some expertise at the board level, which is where a lot of the M&A sort of decisions, final decisions get made. Maybe you can pull back the covers a little bit. It's sort of unpack or how organizations successfully execute these transactions. Is it everybody's job to make a divestment successful? Do people at the board level really dive into these topics a lot and discuss them, or is everything really pretty much set by the time it gets there? I mean, just kind of help take us through maybe how MA&D affects organizations, and start at the tippy top if you could.
Yeah, no, that's a thoughtful question. Now, stop talking in the space of M&A or A&D or M&D. How does it happen? How does it work? Usually, in most organizations, you will have the strategy group, then you have the project group, and then you have the operations group. Just notice the order: strategy, projects, operations. Some organizations, they kind of make mix and match, but really, if you want to understand transactions, break it down into those three. Again, I know you talk about me using number 3 a lot. Strategy, projects, operations. When people ask me questions, Akin, what do you do? I say, I am one of the few guys that translates strategy to operational realities through projects. That's why I call myself a change agent. You have a strategy, you want to be the largest natural gas supplier in Trinidad and Tobago in the next 5 years. That's who you want to be. My job as a project professional is to now take that and say, okay, do we do that organically or do we do it through transactions? And when we decide, depending on our risk appetite and the options that we have out there in the market, then we have a project which we will walk through different series of stages. And we had the transactions stage for any project development, and we had the real project stage for any project development. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that those who are going to execute the project, they participate in the assessment with the strategy team. Because most of the time, transactions or MA&D or A&D, they are initiated by the strategy team. Somebody in there, they will call that person the project manager for this transaction. And then that person, if they know what they are doing, they will bring project professionals, bring them together.
Akin, thanks so much for that explanation of all those terms and kind of an insight on how businesses prioritize and set up their strategy piece along with execution. So now that we know what a megaproject is, we've kind of talked about some of these pillars. Should megaprojects be done at all? You mentioned that people rush. And I'm curious if you could just talk about that failure, talk about the evaluation of whether you should do a project or not. How do you do a good project evaluation?
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is actually the heart of my upcoming book, Megaproject Development and Decision Making. The question isn't, can we build it? The question is, should we build it now, here, with these assumptions, at this risk? I take that again. The question really isn't, can we build it? The question is, should we build it now, here, with these assumptions and at this risk. Evaluation is where courage meets clarity. It is where companies choose discipline over ambition. A great evaluation, in my view, looks at markets, supply chains, regulatory trends, community acceptance, execution readiness, talent availability, geopolitical shifts, and the true cost of capital. Yes, the true cost of capital. If the story isn't convincing on its own, the project shouldn't proceed. And that is the way I look at it. Is this convincing enough? If the story isn't convincing on its own, the project shouldn't proceed. The many a time what we see, especially me reviewing projects now across the globe, is projects that fail. They fail because the business case actually wasn't convincing enough on its own in the first place. But those who are supposed to sign the FID papers, they signed off on it thinking that, okay, yeah, this may not be right now, but at some point down the road, somebody is going to fix it. Yes, the right team will fix problems, but you give them more work that they don't really have to bother about. And it is very expensive. When you do things like that, super expensive, because the contractor will be coming at you to say, this was what you told me you were going to do. This is what you are telling me right now. I don't mind doing what you are telling me right now, but it's going to cost you more. And that's what contractors actually look out for, to be honest. I've been on both sides, on the contractor side and on the owner side. So I know exactly how that word works. Thank you.
I'd love to unpack just a couple items. So first, when you're part of sort of a pre-development activity, one of the things that I think is interesting when I've been involved is the whole team is sitting on this like trigger. And that trigger has the opportunity to provide jobs, capital, profits. There is so many things that make people want to say go, that maybe it clouds people's judgment a little bit. And how do organizations see through those things to really get clarity?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I actually have an example, a real life example. There was a time I had the opportunity to be the deputy project director of a project in Australia. And I so much appreciate what the business did that time, because the mining method was one off. People knew about that mining method, but people hardly used that mining method. Because of that, the business actually identified subject matter experts from any part of the world, and I mean literally any part of the world. They brought them together into one conference room in Australia just to take a look at this opportunity and tell the business, should we actually do this at all? If we're going to do it, what do we know? What don't we know? What are the risks around what we don't know? Are we willing to carry those risks? And if the answer is yes, who will mitigate what risk? Detailed questions. And at the end of the day, the business was able to clearly understand the investment, the risks, the rewards. And that was at a time when there was labor crunch. That means you have to be ready to pay premium to get the right people to work on that project. The business did not sign off on the FID until the people, the scope, the risks, the schedule, and the cost elements, they were clearly defined. Now, the extra step that the business took, which I'll never forget, and I encourage businesses to take that step, was the fact that beyond the project team, the business set up an independent peer review team to do the governance of that work. What that meant was that somebody like me, who might be really close to the project and might feel a little emotional about the project, I want this project to go ahead, and I see that on projects a lot. I want this to go ahead. We must do this. We should make it work and stuff like that. The independent peer review guys will come around And they will say, thank you so very much for what you've done. Just leave us alone. Let's not look at the work. And they will tear it apart and tell you, have you thought about this? Isn't this risk rate? Isn't it too narrow? Shouldn't it be like this? Why this? And they're going to ask you, okay, the people that you say you've got, these people are currently busy doing this, doing that. Are you sure that they're going to be available when you need them? What about the equipment that you need? What kind of contract do you have with equipment manufacturers? Say like finning. We use a lot of finning gears, that kind. Do we have everything in place? And good enough. We had a global supply agreement with finning, which means that they always have something in their manufacturing line for us at any point in time that we could tap into. When a business is so detailed about looking at an investment before they sign FID, I say kudos to them, because it helps set up that investment for long-term success down the road.
Thank you for that insight. And I just want to poke at one more thing you mentioned. So we talked about markets, supply chain, execution readiness. You said true cost to capital. And I'm curious if there's more to that term that you could unpack for us. How do you get
Oh, yeah, there is definitely more. You are a very good listener, and I like you a lot. Now, in terms of the true cost of capital, I've worked in different organizational environments where some organizations, they hardly borrow money to do their projects. They already have the cash, even though they will need partners to participate with them to be able to fund the investment. But if they wanted to, they could fund it alone. Of course, majority of this money will still come from some banks. The banks will probably charge some fees to be able to release the funds, whatever. But there are other organizations. They actually will tell you point blank that, look, all we have money for is 65% of what you're asking for. The remaining 35%, we have to go source for that from equity investors. Then, if that is the case, whether it's equity investors or lenders, you are going to pay through your nose to get that money, especially if you don't have a credibility of delivering successful projects. If you have the credibility, the discount is going to be reasonable. That if you don't have the credibility, they are going to, even the money they will spend tomorrow, they will ask for it yesterday. So just to be sure that you are going to be able to pay their bills. And when you have these two categories of project owners doing the same project, one is going to be able to do projects at a decent rate. The other is going to be able to do projects at a very expensive rate. And again, it is the reality that we face in the project world. And as a project professional, the more money my project owner has, the better. I don't really want them to borrow too much, because you have to actually devote a resource to managing that, depending on the structure. Because sometimes some organizations, they manage that from outside the project, where they allow the project team to focus on it. And I've worked with organizations before where you actually have to identify a core finance group within the project team that will look after managing the lending to make sure that we are able to meet our obligations when due, and we're able to get money when we schedule to get the money from the lenders.
Akin, thank you for that breakdown. It's super helpful. I'm curious if you could indulge me. One of the things about bringing in equity owners versus lenders does it add risk to a project, or does it actually benefit a project if you have, or both?
Either or, it will benefit the project owner. And let me put it that way. The reason is it could benefit the project as well, but it will benefit the project owner. One of the primary reasons that owners look for equity investors or lenders is they want to transfer some of the risks to them, especially equity investors. You are investing in this project because you are willing to co-share the risks that will eventuate on this project. And if it's a lender, most of the time, you may think that they are co-sharing the risk with you, but they are already charging you based on their anticipation of who you are as a project owner, whether you have a credibility or you don't. So you may think you are sharing risk with them. No, they are already charging you hugely for the money that they are giving you access to. So that's kind of the way I look at it. But majority of the time, you see that whether you have a lender or you have an equity investor participating with you on the project, if they are good, and those are the kinds of people that I actually advise today. If they are very good, they will bring us someone like me to work on their behalf, to look at the investment on an ongoing basis. So they don't have to worry, because I will tell them as it is. I will let them know, here are the risks that we face. Mr. Equity Investor, are you willing to carry these risks? And Mr. Lender, here are the risks on this project. If you are giving this project owner access to money, make sure you factor the cost of this risk into what you are giving them access to. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you are going to make money from that investment. So when we talk about the cost of capital, there are a lot of variations to that and the drivers. And depending on the credibility of the project owner, the capital may be more expensive, it may be cheaper. And if you have your money, all you are doing is just work with your regular banks to access money from time to time. And you don't really have to hedge anything, because hedging is another thing that we used to do early on in my career. Lately, I really haven't seen a lot of that, particularly on the CapEx side. I mean, there are still elements of a business that businesses hedge today. But in terms of capital, hedging is kind of reduced a little bit, at least based on the businesses that I interact with. But capital will cost you something, depending on who you are. And depending on who you are asking to participate with you to execute an investment.
Thank you. What I heard, if I was on the board of an organization, is to contact the FTEX group and Akin to help. Having that dispassionate third party, been there, done that person is really helpful when you're faced with some of these big choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it will also save them a lot of headaches down the road. Because we hear of multi-million-dollar litigations today.
Yeah.
It's because foundationally, one or both of the parties or all of the parties, they didn't get something right because they wanted to save money and they decided not to bring on the right consultant to help them understand the investment. Because understanding the investment is a critical step in the process of making sure you invest the right way and that the investment actually make money down the road.
Well, so let's loop back down and talk a little bit about project management pillars and fundamentals. I know that in some of your book series, I think we talked about how you're going to take people through these. And I believe there was sort of some framing where you had pillars and then you sort of had license to operate as sort of a separate section, and then stakeholders and sort of a broader framing. Maybe you can take us through your thinking there. And it's even the experts listening to this podcast, it's always nice to take a trip through the pillars of projects and get some thinkings on it. So
thank you so very much. I was actually having this conversation with about 100 professionals just about 2 weeks ago. It will be 2 weeks tomorrow, actually. Having a similar conversation on this just this alone. We talked about it for almost an hour. Now, let me keep it simple. There are fundamentals to developing successful projects. A project can look very complex, but one of the things that I do is bring simplicity to the chaos, bring orderliness to the chaos. And a number of times in my career, especially today, people don't ask me to come and look at a smart selling project. They usually ask me to come and look at a project in trouble and then advise what could be done. And the difference between me and a number of people who do what I do today is when I recommend something to you, I will tell you, I will also be available to support you to actually action what I'm telling you. So I'm not okay, and people joke about advisors. They just tell people what to do. They don't know how to do it. That is not me. I will tell you what you should consider doing. And I would also ask you if you have the resources, I'm willing to support you to deliver on those things. Now, what are some of the fundamentals? This is by no means an exhaustive list, but I'll just mention a few of them. People come first always. I tell everyone that I made that. You want me to look at a project, the place I start from is show me your organization. Who are the people you have asked to steward this investment? Have they done it before? Are they really passionate about what you're asking them to do? Are they just focusing on doing the little thing and they don't care what happens downstream? Or they are focusing on downstream and bringing those possible challenges to today and fixing it now? So people, that's number one. Number two is scope. What are we building? What do we know about what we're building? What don't we know? How can we be sure that we have fully framed the scope? Then the next one is risk. And I'd like to do it in that order, and I'll tell you why. Risk. Where can this story break? Because a project is a story. We have to ask ourselves, where can this story actually break? And what can we do to mitigate that? Because in my role, in most of my career, businesses rely on me to tell them about tomorrow, today. And that's what people call forecasting. What is the integrity of your forecast? Where can this story actually break? The next one is schedule. How long until value actually appears? We're spending money, or we'll be spending money over the next 3 years, over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years sometimes. How long until value appears? That is schedule. And then the last bit there before I talked about license to operate and why all this is cost. What does this vision truly require? How much will it cost? And then beyond that, there will be some other people that will say, okay, this is how much it's going to cost, but where will the money come from? Because how much it's going to cost may not just be the total cost. Like, remember, we talked about cost of capital earlier. All we are doing here is telling the business, this investment that we've got, with these people, with this scope, with this risk, with this timeline, this is how much it's going to cost. Now, there will be additional layer of, okay, what are those other cost elements that we may not make part of the project, like the cost of capital especially. And there are other things, which I don't need to mention here. But beyond those 5 fundamentals or pillars, the license to operate is key. We can have all this lined up. If we don't have the license to actually build, we're just playing around. So making sure that we understand the regulatory environment, who the regulators are, what their requirements are, what we need now, what we will need later, how frequent do we have to engage them? Do they even trust us? Or have we had a major safety incident before to the point that they are going to squeeze us now before they say yes to any new thing we are building? So these are some of the key elements that affect a project. And any investing group must understand clearly what this is. They don't have to know how to really do that, but they must hire the right consultant or the right independent peer reviewers to take a look at it and advise them that, yes, this is what we've got. We understand what we've got. We know what the risks are. We know how long it's going to take before value appears. We know how much it's going to cost fundamentally. And then we know that we're going to need to borrow half the money from here. And this is the premium that we have to pay. all those kinds of things. We have to make sure that we factor them into it. So, but beyond what we call PMBOK, which I'm sure you know, the Project Management Body of Knowledge Fundamentals, lie the quiet forces, as I like to say: community trust, environmental stewardship, regulatory permission, as I said earlier, stakeholder expectations. Very importantly, opportunity framing. Framing that opportunity early will save you a lot of trouble down the road. I actually partner with a consulting firm here in Houston, where we work together to actually do that. We go from project to project, from business to frame an opportunity so that you actually know what you've got. And then, of course, marketing. One of the things I learned doing acquisitions and divestment, A&D, is this. Majority of the acquisitions that fail, they fail because when they were planning to acquire, they thought that marketing wasn't important. But where are you going to sell whatever you will produce eventually? You need to start thinking of it early. So I actually developed a framework, which is a workflow. It will tell you the number of disciplines that we need to start looking, because you asked a similar question earlier. It will tell you the number of cross-functional disciplines that we need to even start talking about a transaction. And then how the responsibilities of each of those functions, how the responsibility of A affect B, affect C, and so on and so forth, until you move it to the point where you say you are ready to now economically evaluate the opportunity to see what the IRR is going to be, what the NPV is going to be, what the capital efficiency is, what the, maybe break-even point is going to be, and so on and so forth. Before you get to all that, you need to bring a number of disciplines together to work in an integrated manner to be able to look at the opportunity. Now, with all that said, it's vitally important that we all know that a project without a license to operate is a project waiting to be stopped.
Yeah.
As ordinary as that may sound, it is very important. The regulators can stop your project. And that is why when a business, let me quickly say this. When a project team shares their schedule with me, I look at, okay, does this tell me what the external influences are for them to be able to deliver this schedule? And one of the key considerations would be the regulatory environment. What do the regulators need to be able to say go? And when in this old timeline must we wait to get that before we continue? And usually at FID, most of the time, you can do engineering in your offices, you can do it in Asia, do it in Europe, wherever. It doesn't matter. Regulators don't care about that. But before the first shovel hits the ground on site, the regulators must give approval that you should go ahead. And that's why you can do all that you like to that point. You need to know that to be able to execute and deliver the project and operate it, you need the regulators' approval. And that's why a project without a license to operate is a project waiting to be stopped. And let me leave it there. One more thought. While we are talking on these fundamentals, most of the time, 100% of the time, when I had been called into a boardroom to review it, to present a project, or talk about a project, majority of the time, when I open all the slides, people want to see the dollars. Show me the money. But I tell them what I'm telling you today. The money makes zero sense if you don't understand the people you've got, the scope of what you are building, what the risks are, how long it's going to take. You need to understand those 4 elements. Then you can talk about cost. And then cost will make sense. And I'm saying this so that chief executives, boards, they can hear me out and say, please, when people present an investment to you, don't ask them to first show you the money, because the money makes zero sense without understanding those first 4 fundamentals, plus, of course, the license to operate. Back to you.
You know, what strikes me when we talk about this is I hear what you're saying, which is that you started with people, scope, risk, schedule, cost.
Yeah.
And then it's framed into an environment. And that environment affects the entire project. It's not worth doing if you're going to go to sleep and it's going to be in the ocean or something.
Yeah.
So what I think is interesting here is that if we go back to the PMBOK, which you mentioned, and you just talk to a graduate of project management, and you say, tell me about the pillars, they might say, well, it's the triangle, scope, schedule, budget. And I think this triangle, it sits out there in this like ethereal realm, it's like on grid paper. But you started with people, which is not on the triangle. And then you talked about environment, which is where the triangle theoretically sits, to extend the metaphor.
Yeah.
I think the triangle might actually be hurting us a little bit, coming back to that focus on the scope, schedule, budget. If you don't focus on the people, and where your triangle sits, maybe that's more.
Sorry, around. That's actually a very smart thought. And I will tell you why. For years, project management professionals, they have been deceived by the triangle, scope, schedule, cost. And that's why what people call project success is actually project management success. So let me define project success in my view. I actually was supposed to speak about 2 weeks ago to a group of project managers here in Houston, but they didn't have enough people, so they are pushing it into the new year. I wrote a paper in 2006. And the title of the paper was, "The Operation Was Successful, but the Patient Died." Project management paper. Most of the time, it's interesting you say what you said. Most of the time, project professionals, we want to develop the scope, schedule, and cost. Let me get my bonus and get away. No, there is a new thinking in modern day project leadership, not project management, but project leadership, that just delivering scope, schedule, and cost is no longer enough. You need to focus on the product success. So in my word, my definition of project success is project management success plus product success. When you bundle both together, then you have a successful project. Of what good is it for you to operate a patient? Oh yeah, the operation was successful. But at the end of the day, the patient is not alive. Yeah. It's not really meeting the value that you promised them originally. So it's vitally important for project professionals today to start thinking. It's a new thinking, and actually PMI Global, they put up a paper just about 2-3 weeks ago on that we need to start redefining project success as a combination of project management success and product success, especially focusing on the benefits, on the value, vitally important. So to your point, the triangle has deceived a lot of people for many years. And I tell project managers, that's one of the books that I'm going to mention later. Most project managers that you see, they used to be very good project discipline people. Let me just say engineers. I'm a good mechanical engineer, and because I've done that over years, somebody thought, oh yeah, to promote me, they promoted me to be project manager. They forgot that the mechanical engineering, I actually went to school to study it. But the project leadership that they are promoting me to right now, nobody taught me anything. And they wonder why I fail. So it's very important for us to remember as project practitioners, what got you here, which is good mechanical engineering knowledge, will not get you there, which is project leadership. People need to actually take time to study what it means to lead. And then they will be successful project managers. Back to you.
Well, thank you. Your comments remind me of a book. So I'm from the software industry, the data side. And there was a book in the 90s, I think, that was built that was kind of along these topics. It was called Peopleware. And the point of the book was to tell developers that are engineers that humans are not software, right? They're not. So the Peopleware was that was the metaphor of the book. And it clicked with me because I think a lot of engineers, project managers kind of mention that they get the job, they learn about leadership, and then they see people as an input to a system. And they're like a mechanized sort of piece of a moving complex system. But people are different than that. And so if you can put aside the math on people and learn those leadership principles you're talking about, I think that always is a successful strategy. But it's an easy trap to fall into, particularly if you're coming from an ME background.
And I'll say this. Yeah, no, thanks, Orion. I will say this. Again, you are saying all the right things, to be honest with you. So that's why I like this bi-directional exchange of ideas. Because it's not just me learning from you. I'm sure you are picking a few things from what I'm saying as well. It is very important that we know that people deliver projects. And we need to make sure that we allow the people to do what they have been hired to do. It's okay to create gates, or some people call it bus stops, where you must come at this bus stop. Let's talk about the status. You must come at this bus stop. Let's talk about the status, and so on and so forth. It's good. But we need to also make sure that when you hire the right people and you hire the right contractor, give them the free hand to at least be able to do what they've been hired to do. It's vitally important. It will help everybody to be able to deliver a successful project. But then, at the end of it all, the ownership rests with the ones spending the money, the stakeholders, the project owners, and stuff like that. And they have the right to ask questions at any point in time. And it behooves us as project professionals to make sure that we are ready to answer their question whenever those questions are asked.
All right. Well, here's a question for you, Akin. I want to go to something that's impacting the whole space. Everybody wants thought leaders like you to weigh in on this question, which is, how do you see the AI impact in the M&A space, in the major project, mega project space? What are you seeing in your circles? What are people talking about? How is AI impacting projects?
Well, you're going to hear another three things.
All right, yes.
Is that I'm a kind of free, because I learned that very early in my career that if you want to speak, limit it to three things. And again, I learned that too while presenting to senior executives. Because when you present to senior executives, most of the time they're interested in three things, which most people don't realize. They want you to tell them the destination, and then tell them why it matters, and then tell them what you need from them. Once you can allow your presentation to address those three things, you will sell whatever idea, and make sure you tell them in the way that they will understand. Now, let's talk about AI. AI will most likely change three things, and it's already happening, actually. Number one is speed. I call that, for example, in the transaction space or A&D space. You know that when a company is working on an acquisition, what happens? They do it very quickly because they don't want that information to leak out to the market. If they are selling, it may affect their share price. If they are buying, the company that they are buying from may lose some shares for whatever reasons. I mean, market is very sensitive to that. That's why they do it really quickly. So what AI introduces today is that speed. Because due diligence that took weeks now takes hours.
Yeah.
It used to take forever to do due diligence. It takes hours now. Insofar as I learned something recently from one of my consultants supporting me in one of my books. Never ever should you allow AI to write for you. Instead, always, if you're going to use AI at all, and I don't have any problem with that, please allow AI to write from you. When AI writes from you, that means you provide AI a lot of context. You may even have your context already developed, ready to be shipped out. But you want AI to kind of strengthen it and stuff like that. That means AI is only writing from you, not for you. But when you just say, okay, I need to talk to Orion Matthews, the executive project director of Project ABC, and can you give me three things to talk about? AI is going to tell you all kinds of stuff. But when you say, okay, I'm meeting Orion next week, and I want to focus on where he is with his people I want to focus on where he is with the key risks on the project, and I want to focus on progress overall. AI is not just going to go haywire. It's going to limit whatever it's going to put together for you to that. So that means AI is writing from you, not for you. Now, with respect to speed, speed is very important, especially in the transaction space. And AI is actually changing that now. Number 2 is insight. Pattern recognition. In fact, as a human being, I know that to be successful, you've got to understand patterns. I think it was Tony Robbins that said that. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget. You've got to understand patterns. What is changing? How are they changing? Has this happened before? If yes, when it happened before, what was the outcome? Understanding patterns is a recipe for success. So insights from AI will help you because AI is able to recognize patterns. It's able to help you model market depending on what you feed into it. And again, AI can help you test scenarios. And I talked about speed, I talked about insight, and then the third is execution. I would say that planning, scheduling, forecasting, safety analytics, resource optimization, all these, if you provide the right AI tool with the right information, it will help you, save you some time. I would say very loud here that AI won't replace people. A lot of people are really afraid of that. AI will not replace people. Are there some routine tasks that will go away? Absolutely, yes. But what that tells me as a project professional is I need to start thinking, okay, what is it that I do today that I shouldn't be doing? Do you know that today, compared to 35, 36 years ago, when I started my career, leaders do a lot more administrative work than then.
Wow.
When I started, you dictate to your stenographer or to your secretary, and they will type stuff out for you. They'll bring it to you, you review it, you say it's okay, then we can send it and brought it. Today, most leaders, they do all that by themselves. I mean, granted, you have admins, but they do some of these things themselves. But with AI, you can do some of those things through AI, but you have to allow AI to write from you, not for you. So execution is very important. Insight is very important. Speed is very important. AI will not replace people, but it will replace teams that refuse to use it. That is what people need to understand. A lot of people are hesitant to use AI, and I understand their hesitation because they don't know where their information is going to land. I get that. But there are some tools today, AI tools, that they have governance protocols around it. In fact, there was a time I was going to use an AI tool. I wanted to be sure that that AI tool would protect my information. So I asked the AI tool a very personal, before AI, that tool knew who I was. I just asked, okay, I need the house address of Akin Oni and what he has been up to in the past, blah, blah, blah. I just asked a few questions. And the AI came back to me and said, no, that is confidential. I'm not able to provide that information. Just think about that. But there are some tools. You ask that question, they'll give you all kinds of stuff. Don't go there. So test the robustness of the tool you are using. Make sure that there are governance protocols around it. While AI will not replace people, we need to know that it will replace teams that refuse to use it.
I love the threes, and I'm tracking them. Speed, insight, execution. And then you wrapped up, you had a nice frame, which is that AI should be from you, not for you. And I really appreciate that. And I think the question I was going to ask, but maybe I can expand on it, because I think with the threes I can answer it, was like, how do people know if they're adopting AI in a way where they're not going to get replaced? And I think maybe you would agree with this, but perhaps it's if your work speed is going up, if you are getting better insights, and if your execution is better, that would be like a measure that you could just sort of sense check. You're like, I'm going to double my output this year. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to use AI. It's possible. I'm going to see more insights. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to use AI to get those things. Then you're part of the solution. You're part of the value proposition of AI. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that. I dropped off one of my children at the airport yesterday. On our way to the airport, we were just chatting. I said, how do you use AI? And the comment was, I will write a 4-page report or a 10-page report, and I will put it in a secured AI environment. And I'll say, AI, this 10-page report, my boss does not need more than 4 pages. Reduce it to a 4-page report without losing key insights. That is an intelligent way to use AI.
Yeah.
And then the next level to that is when you get the 4-page report, now go over it and make sure that one thing that you really like to showcase hasn't been left out. That's where people get really lazy and they complain about AI. You've got to allow AI to do what AI can do, but do what only you can do that AI will not do for you, because AI does not know what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily. Even when you have developed your 20-page or 10-page report and you want to reduce to a 3-page summary, when you should read that from content to index to make sure that AI hasn't said something that shouldn't be said and AI hasn't left out a salient point. Vitally important.
So in a way, maybe you could abstract this out to any of the tools out there or share some of your thoughts. You have a lot of you have SAP, PPM, you have other different systems people talk about. We've kept it at a very fundamentally abstract level, which I think is good. We've heard your thoughts on AI. Do you think those other tools also are really just along those 3 pillars of speed, insight, execution? And this is just the latest evolution of the tool set? Or do you think that the tools have another purpose and AI has a specific purpose?
The way I will answer that question is this. Before now, and even up to today, the commonest scheduling softwares, Microsoft Project and Primavera, Project Planner, those tools are not going away. AI is not going to take them over. They can incorporate elements of AI into what they generate, which they probably already did when no one knew about AI. Because AI has been in existence since the 60s, or if not the 50s.
Yeah.
But people just didn't recognize it. Because how will you push information into a Primavera system and then you run the schedule and then it will give you different scenarios? And you tell me that there's no AI involvement in that? We've been actually engaging AI. We've been leveraging AI. We just didn't recognize it. It's just not that it's been recognized. So for me, AI is not going to push out a Primavera Project Planner. But if Primavera Project Planner owners, if they are wise, they will see how better they can inject AI into that software so that, because it's all about bringing different models together to be able to deliver what you want delivered. So how can we incorporate more artificial intelligence into the project management tools that we use in a manner that it makes our life a lot easier? Because before now, we've always generated what-if scenarios in Primavera. And I ran Primavera for years in my career. We've always generated that. That's some form of AI that we were leveraging without even knowing it. And this is going to continue. There are other tools like the Prologue Manager, like K-Drumy Cost Manager, like In Control, Prism. You can keep naming them.
Yeah.
If you are static and you are not incorporating some artificial intelligence into those systems, you are going to be left behind, unfortunately.
So it's time to level up. Look, maybe we can talk a little bit about how we level ourselves up in this profession. So you're pretty advanced in terms of your skills, your presentation skills, your project control skills, the skills with people, planning, performance, things like that. So in the context of a mega project, maybe we can get a little personal and you could just say, how did you develop these areas in yourself? And how can other people develop as a professional?
Thank you very much. What I tell and I've got a number of mentors and mentees, more mentees than mentors today. And I learn from both. And I tell people mentorship is bi-directional relationship. If a mentorship is unidirectional, there's a problem. It's probably not the mentorship program that you should be a part of. It should be bi-directional. That's my firm belief, and it has worked well for me. So for anyone pursuing project management today, I would say, number one, curiosity. Curiosity is any professional's best friend. Just be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Be steady. Don't be just all over the place. Be steady. Build relationships like your life depends on them, because your project does. And I tell people, relationship, especially as a project professional, relationship is any project management professional's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Build the right relationship with the people you work with. They will go the extra mile to make sure that they deliver on your expectations. And the other way is true too. They would have like a lackadaisical attitude. If you don't care about them, you don't really have any meaningful relationship with them. And I'm talking about real meaningful professional relationships. So curiosity, being steady, relationships, these are key drivers of success, especially for anyone pursuing project management career today. Also, learn not only tools. One of the mistakes some schedulers make is they only learn how to run Primavera Project Planner. I spoke at a project controls session a few months ago where I talked about project controls leadership here in Houston, actually. And that was probably one of the most well-received presentations I've given in the last 5-6 months. It is very important for us to know that as project controls professionals, as project management practitioners, learn not only tools, learn people. Who are people? How do they function? What made them tick? How can I get the best out of them? Granted that even when you do all these things, some people are still not going to behave the way you want them to behave, and that's fine. All you hold yourself is do the best that you can to engage people. If they don't want to engage you, especially someone like me, some people already put me in a box without even knowing who I am. Not many people are like you. You saw me and you say, "Oh, Akin, I really would like to talk to you." Some people, they look at me, they already box me up and then maybe put me aside. There's nothing I can do about that. So it's very important that we learn not just tools, but people. If we're going to grow in our career, we also need to learn the business case of any project that we're working on. How does my bit fit the big picture? What does the big picture look like? Broadly speaking, how does my bit fit that? Because when you know that, it drives your ability to create your why. And then don't be Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-all. Read widely. Study. Be a lifelong learner. I am constantly learning something, either through writing or through studying or through speaking, because people have asked me to speak on a topic that I had zero clue about before they gave it to me. And I had to study for it. And I had to weave my life story, because I'm a project management storyteller, if you like. I must, everything that I talk about, I must be able to see myself in it. That's when I'm able to talk about it with passion.
Yeah.
So be a leader. And we talked about that earlier. Listen, learn, lead. And very importantly, this is one key takeaway here. Let your character rise above your resume. Just unpack that.
So great frame. And one thing that strikes me, and I think you mentioned this at the very start, but projects are stories. And so if you take that lens, it's like, well, who are you? What are you doing in the story? Well, in order to tell where you're at in the story, you have to zoom out and see the big picture because there's a narrative arc going on and you are part of this story. And if you want to be a character that's part of the story, you have to have relationships with other people and you have to be a character people would like, which means a curious person, a steady person. I've never really thought about myself in the context or thought about projects in the context of being a story. It's a weaved story of society. And then sort of saying, okay, well, if I'm in this story, like, what do I need to do to grow and be a part of it? So, yeah. And so some of the things you were saying about being curious, steady, focusing on the relationships, big picture, lifelong learner, character development. Character development kind of triggered it for me because it's like, we are characters. Yeah. Thank you for those tips. Those are really great. Is there a book or some thing that you really love that you just are like, this is it, aside from The Mighty Warrior Way, which should come out in March, that really like gave you a big impression? You mentioned Tony Robbins.
Yeah, no, I have a few, and I'm gonna just toggle through them. And this is just like maybe 10%, but I'll talk about them really quick. There is a book by Edward Merrill, on industrial mega projects, concepts, strategies, and practices for success. And it talks about the cornerstone. It's actually the cornerstone text of mega project performance, risk, and planning. In fact, I remember just talking about it in 2006 or so, when I wrote my paper. The operation was successful, but the patient died. That paper was published across all of BHP Bulletin. And when Ed Merrill was told about the paper, he actually asked his team to publish it across all of IPA Global because of how relevant it was then. I didn't even know that today PMI will now be showcasing that anywhere. The other book that I really like is the one co-authored by Ramcharan and Larry Bossidy, Execution, the Discipline of Getting Things Done. I really like that book because it talks about the three processes: the strategy process, the people process, and then the operation process. And the most important of those is people. I encourage people to go read that. And then, of course, we have the Peter Drucker's The Effective Executive. It's actually his definitive guide on personal and managerial effectiveness. And I'm a man of focusing on effectiveness first before efficiency. Efficiency is good, but that's not where I focus my attention, because effectiveness means doing the right things.
Yeah.
And efficiency only means doing things right. If you are doing the wrong things, ineffective, and you are efficient, you are still going to be wrong. So that's why I encourage leaders. When you have the right people, they will be efficient. You as a leader, focus on effectiveness. Ask the question, is this the right thing for us to do? Are we doing the right things? So that's why one of the reasons I like that book. And then, of course, Jim Collins' a popular book, Good to Great.
Yeah.
That's great. And then Bent Flansburgh is a professor as well. He's on Megaproject. He's widely known for Megaproject development. His book is titled How Big Things Get Done. That summarized decades of Megaproject research that he conducted.
Yeah.
There is Atul Gawande, the Checklist Manifesto. There's Doris Goodwin, Team of Rivals. There is Adam Grant, Give and Take. And very importantly, I mentioned it earlier, Marshall Goldsmith, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. It is considered a modern classic on leadership, especially leadership behavior, personal growth, and the habit that often holds successful people back from their next level. Are you hearing me today? You want to go to the next level? Go and read that book, because it will challenge you to leave the comfortable and go for what's next. That way you can reach for the next level. And I learned from unexpected sources too, like the biographies of people, history, psychology, of course, the Bible, and my own mentors and mentees scattered all over the world.
Well, thank you for that. Real quick, just to circle back, the learnings are great. We're sort of talking about personal development, talking about your narrative within a project. So obviously, when you're people's narrative, part of the project, you have a family, that's a bigger narrative. That's a very important narrative. And you've traveled the world. You've been to 6 continents. A lot of people that get into this space do a lot of traveling. How do you raise a family when you're traveling to all of these places? And could you give us some advice on that?
Yeah, very quickly. I would say that as a family, we treat, all the time, we treat every new city like a classroom.
Oh,
Yes. Every new city that we go to, we don't go there with the mind that, oh, we know everything. No, we go in there like a classroom because there is an opportunity to learn something new if we are open-minded. Because great students are open-minded students. When you get into a classroom, you open your mind, be ready to learn. And that's one of the things that we do. And then, of course, our family rituals, they kept us grounded. Calling one another, like up to today, my wife and I, we still meet with our children every week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every week via Zoom. We meet with them every week just to check in. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, depending on what they've got going on to share with us, other than the multiple directional calls between members of the family. All of us will come together once a week just to check in. And that's very important. So we call one another with prayer, and then there are certain routines, and then we share our adventures too. If something is going on, it's good, great. If it's not great, share it too. And let's all talk about the lessons learned. And presence, I learned that it matters more than proximity. Each time I was home, I make sure I was fully home. And my wife, Flora, who is a tax consulting business owner in Katy, Texas, was the anchor that kept us steady. In fact, I call her my resident director, and because she has been the common denominator in the family without a doubt.
Thanks for sharing that personal note. That's really sweet to hear. And just kind of circling back on the books, you're writing 3 books. They're launching starting March. What was your thinking when you were writing them? And what were your core goals? And maybe just talk us through these books a little bit.
Okay, very quickly, I'm just going to summarize it because each of the books will take us the whole day for me to. So the first one, the book that I actually started writing first, I started in 2022. It was inspired by one of my executive MBA and project management professor in Calgary, Camp Jogdev. She inspired me to start writing because I couldn't really create time to teach. That's Megaproject Development and Decision Making. And interestingly, it probably will be coming out first in early March next year. And that book was written to change how leaders choose, shape, and govern mega projects prior to FID. That's the primary purpose. Because in going around continents to review mega projects, I found one thing. Most of these projects that failed, they actually failed before FID. But the people signing the FID paper, they didn't really have any clue that they haven't dotted every I and crossed every T. So that's what mega project development and decision making is all about. Just to change how leaders choose, shape, and govern mega projects prior to FID. The next one, which is the more popular one, is The Mighty Warrior Way, which is more of my autobiography, wherein and then I weave leadership frameworks around key moments of my life. And that book was written actually to offer encouragement, grit, and hope for anyone walking through fire. Because if you have a desire to grow, you will experience fire. It's not, but if you are okay, you like your comfort zone, yeah, sure, that's warm, fuzzy, that's okay. But if you desire to grow, you will experience fire. You will go through fire. And if you are going to grow, how do you minimize the impact of the fire that will come at you in the course of your growth, in your growth journey? So this is more of an encouragement. It's a guide. It's like a mini handbook, if you like, that people can reference. And the third one is functional excellence, which is the one that I'm writing right now. And I'm working really hard. I'm trying to make sure that at least the first draft, I have it before December 31st, 2025, midnight. I'm working really hard on that. And the goal of that book is really simple, to give organizations a practical playbook for successful high-stakes execution and operations. This will apply to not just the project guys, but even to operations guys, because I've seen it all. And I want to have a playbook that you have been hired to be the operations leader of this asset in Timbuktu or Mozambique. When you grab that book, read through it, it will give you a lot of ideas around some of the fundamental areas to focus on so that you can listen, learn before you lead. Vitally important. So each book is a platform for impact. Better leaders, in my view, better teams, and better projects. That's the goal. And my goal in life right now in writing all this book is, when can we stop mega project failures? I want to push project practitioners, project professionals in that direction to make sure we stop or significantly reduce the rate at which mega project fails. Back to you.
I think that's a great goal. I think we started the podcast talking about how only 1% of projects succeed. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of room for improvement. And I'm looking forward to reading your books. The Mighty Warrior Way, starting with mega project development and decision-making, then the Mighty Warrior Way, and then functional excellence. So thank you for putting those out there. I know it takes a ton of work to do that. Before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit about FTEX Group and what you do there?
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Well, to anyone out there who want to learn more about FTEX Group, we have a unique investment and consulting firm advising boards, CEOs, COOs, and mega project directors across the new energies, oil, natural gas, LNG, mining, refining, and infrastructure sectors. At FTEX Group, we are your partner in project/business strategy and configuration, because some projects are too big. Organizations don't even know where to start. We work with you to configure your project. It's actually a knowledge area within PMI. And then we also focus on governance as well. What processes do you have in place? Standards, guidelines, work instructions. What don't you have? And how may that drive some gaps in your delivery? We will help you figure that out and not just recommend to you. If you give us the opportunity, we will actually partner with you to develop whatever is missing. And then, of course, execution support. For any project in execution, you need expert support. Let us know. We would be ready to support you. And like I've mentioned earlier, independent peer reviews or audits. Whether it's business audit or projects are independent peer reviewed, we're there. And then very importantly too, which we value greatly, is people development. Yeah. We like to help your people to develop. So even when we work with your organization, we don't work with them keeping our tricks of the trade close to our chest. We will share with them. That way they know how things work and why. And then so thus, if you're an investor, maybe a project owner, a mid-market firm seeking values-aligned expertise to lift your capital initiatives, whether in M&A, A&D, M&A&D, or transactions, engineering, delivery, assurance, due diligence, or capability building, we welcome a conversation. Thank you.
I imagine you'll get a call or two from this conversation. One of the things that struck me that you said is that you don't keep things close. I think today with AI and just sort of the way that organizations like to engage consultants, the model of consultants having a secret box that they then apply to a business, those days are over. And I love the fact that you are out there telling people how to do it, sharing on this podcast, really great information. And then you can go from there and help infuse it into businesses. You don't have anything to hide. There's no secret thing that you're going to keep from people. So what a great engagement model that is, to just get in to do the work.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think people can learn more. They can go to your website, akinoni.com. Yeah. And then it's FTEX Energy Services. So that's EFTEX energyservices.com for the website. I think you also got a LinkedIn. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
Just look for me, Akin Oni, on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn handle, if there's anything like that, is AI Oni. That's Alpha India, Oscar Nancy India, AIONI. That's my LinkedIn handle. But yeah, please feel free to connect with me. I've got tons of materials on LinkedIn, which I share freely with anyone who care to listen. I'm willing to sit with you to walk with you through a few things. Anything you call projects, just think about me. Thank you.
Akin, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated learning about mega project development and leadership. I'm really looking forward to your books coming out in March. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Major Project Podcast. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and learn more at themajorprojectpodcast.com. Until next time, keep building big.